involved, feel free to.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Love and Reload, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I'm so blessed and honored to be here with Ann Dela Victoria, the CEO of EasyStart Relocation. Hey, Ann, how you doing?
Good. Nice to meet you, Ben.
It's nice to meet you as well. Yeah, thanks for being on the show. We love to kind of reach across the pond and talk to folks in EMEA about relocation. And I love talking to entrepreneurs. So really excited about this conversation today.
Same. I mean, I've been actually watching Love and Reload for, I don't know, not too long, but I have watched it before. And I love the stories that people tell about their entrepreneurship, global mobility, and everything like that. So I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. And you know what? It is the stories. And like a lot of times, people come on and like, okay, what relocation topics do we want to talk about, or what studies or statistics, or I'm like, honestly, people just want to hear about your story. They want to hear about how you discovered relocation, or how it discovered you, and how you found your way, and kind of what your unique little experience is. And the people really gravitate towards people. They gravitate towards the food. They gravitate towards travel. So when you're talking about Paris and France and all that, I mean, people are going to be all ears for that. Yeah. So
Well,
get in the comments, hit that like button. I want to know who you are, where you are out there. If you've got questions for Ann about being an entrepreneur in this space, if you've got questions about France and relocating to France, and I don't know, if there's any kind of geopolitical implications to relocation right now in France, like there are here in the United States, throw it in the comments and ask those questions. We've got an expert here with us. But Ann, I got to ask you before we get into France, what got you to France? What got you to start your personal global mobility journey?
That's a really good question. So I studied in Boston. Actually, I'm originally from Boston. I am, from the United States. I moved to France in 2013, I believe, after my studies in international business and law. So I wanted kind of implement that in reality after meeting a lot of internationals in my program. I mean, there was French people, Spanish people, Italians, and whatnot. And I kind of just became so accustomed to meeting these different cultures that I got really curious to actually, eventually move abroad. And it was nice because a lot of my friends that I met that were French were kind of pushing me to come into France. And originally I thought, okay, I'd be here for 6 months. And here we are, like 12 years later. So
are you saying the French are pushy? Is that what you said, Ann?
Gotta love the French.
I know, that's one of those stereotypes of things. The Americans and the French have this love-hate relationship for the centuries, right? So we wouldn't have our democracy without the French, I think. But yeah, it's cool. So you moved over overseas. At what point were you like, this could be a business?
Oh, it took me a really long time to kind of figure that out, because when I first arrived, I won't lie, I didn't know a bit of French. I would say like bonjour, for example, or merci, but that was the extent of my French at that moment. Yeah. And luckily I had went to Sorbonne to kind of pursue the French language afterwards. So that kind of started building up my courage to be able to speak and work in a setting, an international setting. And actually before I did relocation, I was in marketing and communications, actually. So I had worked for Viacom International in the marketing and communications department, and then got a job at CNN International here in Paris. Eventually I got my MBA. I kind of stepped over, got my MBA, and then started working for smaller, well, the group was part of Apple, I would say. So I was working for smaller companies that were advertising Apple products, and I just was having, to make sure that they were on par in terms of advertising auditing. But it was during this time where I you know, it was COVID, it was like 2020 or something like that. And I started going on Facebook communities, helping other expats like myself kind of navigate the whole administrative aspect of relocating to France, or those who are actually here in France already. Obviously there wasn't much going on during COVID time. So I was like, okay, why not like help people? Because, you know, that's, I like helping people. I've always done volunteering. So it actually started off as volunteering at first, and then eventually became a company in and of itself. Voilà.
COVID was such a catalyst for so many businesses and so many life decisions and so many relocations and self-directed relocations. I mean, I think we're going to look back. It was kind of like the best of times and the worst of times, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was a bittersweet moment, obviously, because I was able to kind of shift into something that I've always wanted to do, something on my own. I mean, I never really thought that I would be staying in a corporate setting, to be honest. I always knew I had something bigger in life. And here it is, you know, like the fact that I started off, you know, just helping people was something that really I was really passionate about in general, especially for those who, you know, I wanted to help in terms of, I've been there before, like I've been in their steps, and I wanted to make sure that they were going in the right direction. And eventually over time, they kind of started coming back to me or referring to me to their friends and whatnot. And here we are.
I want to talk about that. We're going to double click into that. Get in the comments right now if you got questions about, you know, the relocation industry in France, about the kinds of services that are provided or most sought after. A lot of our folks that are watching are US based in this business, and I think that there's some differences, but I'm going to ask you a little bit about those. But we're going to check in real quick and see who's out there. So get in the comments here and leave a little love out there. Jillian Guzda, excited to hear from you today. What's up, Jill? It's good to see you.
Hi, Julian.
This is it now? Is it
That is
Louis?
That's Louis Buyala. He's also the co-founder of EasyStart Relocation. He's a COO, so he's here with us as well.
Awesome.
He's French.
Well, bienvenue, Louis. That's all I know. Daisy, hi, Ann. Look forward to hearing from you today. What's up, Daisy? Good to see you. And we got
Hi,
Samara
Daisy.
checking in. Super producer Samara, excited to hear your story. Yeah, get in there with questions. I'm really curious about it too. So what was the initial product or service that you conceived of in the very beginning, and how has it maybe changed?
So initially I had started off with just the housing search, because that in and of itself is a freaking nightmare
Mhm.
in France.
Is
I mean,
it different in France than it is in, say, Boston?
yeah, I mean, the process is fairly different, I would say. They're very particular about who they want in the apartment. Um, in Boston, I mean, it's been a long time, obviously, but in Boston, I would say the process is easier as long as you have money. In France, even if you do have money, it's still very complicated to get into an apartment. You have to show you have at least 3 times rent, for example. And if you don't have the 3 times per rent, then you have to get a guarantor, which is, well, we say in French, garant. Sometimes it can't even be a foreign guarantor if the landlord doesn't want to. So you have to get a private insurance guarantor, which is an extra.
When you say 3 times rent, are you saying 3 times rent in your monthly income? Are you saying in the bank, in savings? Help me understand that ratio.
Sorry, so 3 times the rent amount. So for example, if your rent was 1,000 euro, you need to have at least 3,000 in salary.
In salary.
And
Got it.
sometimes that's not even enough. So even if you did have that, sometimes they ask for more than that. So there's a lot of documentation in France. The bureaucracy here is all about paperwork, I would say. And they're getting better. They're becoming more digitalized, but mostly paperwork, in person, in hand, physically. So yeah, 3 times the rent. There's a lot of documentations that you need to provide. And the process is in France is very demanding. The rental market is very demanding here. So I wanted to help others kind of go through that, make that process easier, I would say.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And when you initially started, you know, did you have like a first customer or first client that you relied on for business?
Oof, actually there was this thing called MobiliPass, I would say. Mobility Pass is no longer a thing. It was a state aid actually given to those who were helping people relocate to France. So I kind of utilize this as my payment system instead of actually directly asking money from the clients, which was nice. So I was helping them without having them pay me, but I was getting paid by
Wow.
the state to get.
So it's like a state subsidized relocation benefit
Exactly,
almost.
exactly.
Oh, brilliant.
Unfortunately, that's no longer a thing because other companies started realizing, oh, let's utilize this and kind of take advantage of it. And then they're like, no, we got to stop because, state funds can be very limited. So the fact that it's more and more people started doing it, they were like, we can't do it anymore. Sorry.
So your initial kind of service was to find housing and help to navigate the bureaucracy and the paperwork for expats based on your own lived experiences. How did that morph over the last 5 years, and what are you doing now?
So we are doing everything from A to Z at EasyStart now. We do everything from visa and immigration to housing, of course, finding schools for children, opening up bank accounts, business creations as well for companies coming over into France.
Why is that? I'm going to stop you there real quick because that's super interesting. Why is business creation a service that you offer? It's not a typical service we hear about in the relocation management, at least here in the States. Why is that important in France?
I think the reason why it's important in France is because being a digital nomad, for example, so we get a lot of people coming in on what we call a professional liberal visa, which is the freelancer type of visa or like a solo entrepreneur visa. To be able to do that, you have to create a business in France, in fact, and you have to be able to pay your taxes. So that's the reason why we also do the business creation. We do have partners who are, accountants and tax advisors because we are not tax advisors ourselves. We're not allowed to do this, but we work with them as well to also make sure that if they're creating a bigger company, then that's something we can also help out with in terms of, license. Yeah.
Got
So
it.
there's, yeah.
So you got several services. So I kind of cut you off there a little bit, but describe all the services for us again, if you would.
What did I say? Oh yeah, so yeah, bank account, business creation, finding schools for children, driver's license. We don't do driver's license that much, but we have done it in the past. I remember this one time actually for finding schools. I had to actually convince a school to homeschool a child, which is in France, that's like considered no. But they were only here in the US, I mean, in France for a year. So it took a really long time to be able to convince them. But even for things like that, EasyStart has been able to successfully help people in terms of relocating to France, make their
So
dreams.
homeschooling is just something that us crazy Americans do over here, huh? It's not something
They
that
were
they're doing
American
over.
too.
They were or were not?
Yeah, they were.
Of
They
course
were.
they're American. Of course we're like, who needs the school? We can do it better. We never want to let our kids grow up and
Oh
go
my
out.
God.
No, my brother and sister were homeschooled for a period of time.
Honestly,
One was
homeschooling is great, but the
yeah,
system in France that requires the children to go to school, and I
yeah.
can
They don't.
understand.
Yeah, I get it too. I get it too.
Yeah.
So now your business has kind of has grown into all these different facets. And what would like a typical client of yours be? Like, give me an example of a type
Oh
of a
man.
client that would work with EasyStart.
Yeah. So the typical client, we don't have a typical client, but we have a lot of Americans coming into France, and people from the UK. We have seen an increase of solo entrepreneurs coming over here and creating their businesses, in fact. So those who are freelancers, for example, or whatnot. We also get a lot of retirees, I would say, as well. So those are our two main demographics that come into France.
So it seems like a lot of individuals, who are either retiring or starting a company or digital nomads. Do you work with like large corporations to move their populations, or is your niche kind of more the individual?
No, we do, but well, originally it was more B2C. So of course, we will always stick with individuals, but we are pushing more our B2B. So we do have, we're working with some EOR companies, for example, which in the end it's more like B to B to C. But we do also have, companies who are interested in coming over into France and creating an entity as well. So we're pushing more of that and hoping we'll see more of that in, later in 2025 and onward.
I'm super interested in customer acquisition and how you find customers because, in B2B space, is great because it aggregates demand, right? And so you go to a corporation or a relocation management company or a large aggregator of DSP services, and you can tap into this massive trove of customers. However, the shift in our business, and it has been happening since I've gotten into it really, is towards lump sum and self-directed relocations. And so I'm always fascinated as someone from kind of more the B2B space, how folks who are B2C actually navigate that space. So I'm going to ask you about that a little bit here. We got a couple people with comments coming in here. So get in the comments. Let us know what your thoughts are. If you've got questions about relocating in France or to France, let us know. Rob's like, we got representation for both sides of the pond here.
Like Rob wants you to go to France.
We've got wicked smart Cambridge, Massachusetts. Rob Zeitz here.
Oh, Robert, that's great. I'm actually from Massachusetts too. So hello, fellow Bostonian.
Look at that. Look at that. And then we have Erin, who I think is in France now. And she says so much red tape and bureaucracy in France.
There is.
Rob wants me to set myself up as an entrepreneur in France and change my name to Ben Croix.
Ben Croix.
Ben Croix.
There you go.
How do you say cross in French? Is it croix?
There it is. Croix.
Oh my gosh, I'm so dumb.
No, you're not. Never say it.
Yeah,
Never say
I'm sorry. I'm learning all the time. Thank you, Rob. I appreciate you. Ben Croix. That has a ring to it. People say Ben Croix. Ben Croix has like a real ring to it there. Rob. Maybe I will. What would be the benefits? Sell me on relocating to France and becoming a digital nomad, solopreneur. Let me just get rid of all the Glomo things. Let me just do this thing on my own. I'm just going to go to France, hang out, drink wine, eat cheese, and maybe, do a little work on the side. What's the pitch, Ann?
Oh, the pitch? Okay, well, really it depends on what you want to do, right? So if you want to be a solo entrepreneur, or if you're actually bringing your own company over into France, those are very
forget them. Forget that. It's just me. Maybe my wife if she's lucky, but it's just me for now. We're just talking about me right now.
Okay, just you. So, well, the first thing you need to do is obviously go through the visa process because that's the most important thing. You can't come and work here without going through the visa process. But luckily, it's not as daunting as you might think it is.
I can get a visa on my own. How would I do that, Ann?
Well, obviously, you would have to go through what we call the French visa wizard online. So it's a digital application process that we go through with our clients as well. It's just the visa application in of itself. But if you were to go on the entrepreneur professional liberal visa, depending on what you want to do, the process can be different for many people. So for example, if you were to open a bar in France, the process is going to be a bit longer in terms of that visa application compared to if you were to be a consultant in France, which would...
Yeah, I'm going to be a consultant. That's what I'm going to do.
Okay, there you go. So you're going to... Ben Croix is going to be a consultant in France.
Yeah, of course. Sounds very plausible. So it's me and Emily in Paris. Will be like the same thing.
There you go. Hopefully, maybe you can meet her here.
Yeah, my wife wouldn't like that, but she's a fan.
So anyway, what was it? So in terms of the visa,
talking about getting me a visa. Get me over there. I'm a consultant.
First, you have to go through the visa process. It's not as daunting as it seems. I mean, obviously, you would need to do a business plan, financials, make sure that you'd be able to sustain yourself in France.
What if I'm currently a consultant? I'm currently doing this. Do I have to still do all that stuff like from scratch, or can I just show like maybe 3 years P&L, some cash, balance sheet?
For sure, these are things that you wouldn't need to show if you already have a business. Technically, you have two options here if you want to do that as well. Okay. So you could go on a visa called Professional Liberal Visa and be a solo entrepreneur. You can continue doing this as well, or you can go on a visa called a Passport Talent Visa or Talent Passport Visa under an employer of record who kind of hires your company that's already in the US to be able to have the compliances in France. So all HR, compliance, legal, payroll, et cetera, you would be under their entity in France, and you would kind of get a permanent contract under their name. And having to do this kind of means that you're sponsored by this company to be able to come into France, which is also nice because you can take your wife and she can be another Emily in Paris in France, or meet her.
Ah, there we go. Olivia in Paris. That's what we'll call it.
Yeah, exactly.
Olivia in Paris. And super interesting. Now, do I have to pay taxes in both France and the US in that case?
I'm not a tax advisor, but
Okay.
depending on how much you make in France,
Very
obviously
little.
you'll need to declare in both countries. So you have, even me, I still have to declare in France and also in the US. So it really depends on how much you make in France. I think there's a specific cap of maybe around 100 something euro, where then you start paying taxes in the US as well. However, IRS loves to watch over Americans abroad. So you really need to make sure you're declaring. Otherwise, you can be in trouble.
So if I go to France, but all my clients are still US stateside and they pay my US account, but that's still money that I'm making while in France, so I still have to declare that? I mean, I know I'm pushing you to the edges of tax while I'm here. But
taxes are extremely important in France too, just so you know.
Oh gosh. Shoot, it's just tax day here in the States. I was trying to get away before.
Well, actually, even though you pay more technically pay more taxes here in a way, you get a lot of benefits too. And that's the reason why a lot of people are actually thinking about coming to France, because there's a lot of benefits associated to coming into France. For example, like the healthcare system is extremely good. I mean, I'm from the US, so I know in terms of the healthcare system how aggravating it can be, especially if you're in a tight position. For example, if I'm dying on the floor, I know this is very extreme, but if I'm dying on the floor,
No, let's do it. I love dramatic stuff like that.
I need to call 911. I don't fear calling the ambulance and trying to pay $4,000,
right?
You know, where that's essentially reimbursed and covered for you in France. So
nice. I'll go over there and I'll call the ambulance. It'll be like Uber. I'll just get around in the ambulance. You know, a little oxygen, maybe a little transfusion. Aaron says I'm here on the
great.
visa.
On the professional liberal. Okay, so we were just talking about that. Yeah, so that's a visa that I told you about, the solo entrepreneur visa for Ben to come over.
Yeah, Aaron, how's the tax situation off the record? Super curious, Aaron, about that. And Aaron, whereabouts are you? Are you in the north? Where are you? You're like in the mountains or something, aren't you? I feel like I saw a picture of you in a chalet somewhere. So let me know.
That's nice.
Hit that like button, get in the comments here. Louis says we have Billy Davis with us on the stream, and he is in the middle of the process of his visitor visa. Billy, feel free to jump in. What does Billy need to know, Ann?
Yeah, so he's in the process of visitor visas are actually not that difficult as long as you can prove that you have enough money to sustain yourself without working in France.
Talk to me about this, right? So if I want to come visit, do I need a visa to come visit Paris this summer with my wife? Just to come visit for maybe a few days, maybe go see a Musketeers game. Paris
I mean, as there's an agreement between the US and France, you don't need to have a visa if you're staying less than 90 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
More than 90 days, yes, you will need a visa.
My good friend, Hosea Botley, he's a friend of the show. He's with Universal Global, and he is a part owner of the Paris Musketeers football team.
That's so cute.
Yeah. Cute is an interesting word for it. Yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
Musketeers, I think like the Three Musketeers,
Yeah. Have you heard of the Paris Musketeers American football team?
You know what? I feel guilty. I do not. I've never heard of them.
I think they play next to PSG. I think they play in the stadium next to PSG or something like that. So they start in the summertime. Yeah. So it's American football over there, and they've been there for 3 years, maybe 4 years. Anyway, they made it to the championship game in the semifinal, I think it was, of the European Football League. Yeah. So it's pretty cool. You should definitely go check it out. I'll get you tickets. But look here, we got Billy checking in. Hi there, it's Billy. I'm watching and learning here.
Lovely.
Hey, Billy. So now a visitor visa is for over 90 days. Is that what you're saying? But under a year?
Yes. So if you're planning, there's short stay visitor visas for those who are staying up until like 6 months. And those who are planning on staying 12 months or more, it's a long stay visitor visa, which is renewable. That's a residency card, by the way.
Okay. Got it.
Oh, thank you, Daisy, the Paris Musketeers.
See,
I
if you
feel
need tickets,
feel
let me
very
know.
bad for not knowing about this, but I'm not a huge sports person,
No,
so
I understand. I understand.
weirdly,
So now you've had EasyStart now for how many years has it been?
yeah, it's about like 5 years now. Yeah.
5 years. And I know, so Glomo's about 5 years old too. We started during the pandemic, and I incorporated it, I think it was June of 2020.
What made
And
you start the Glomo?
I hated my job. Yeah. I mean, pretty much. Like, I was like, I felt like I think you said this before. Like, I felt like I was called to do more. I felt like I had more to offer. I felt like I had more to say. I felt like
Mm,
working for a regional US based moving company wasn't going to be the end all be all for me. And I wanted to do more and have more of an impact and have more creative control and autonomy over my work.
that makes
And I
sense.
always, yeah, and I always felt like the entrepreneurial urging, and I just didn't know what that outlet was going to be. There was a time where I looked at like buying some moving company, buying a trucking company, buying a local home delivery final mile company. And my wife's like, Ben, you don't even like trucks. You don't even know how to change your own oil. You don't know how to change a tire. You're going to end up on the back of a moving truck in June having a heart attack. Why don't you do something that's a little bit more in line with like what you actually like to do every day? And so that's when I got into consulting and deal making and recruiting and stuff. So
Amazing.
she was right as usual. Yeah. So I'll take her to Paris.
I think as entrepreneurs, every entrepreneur in this world we're all very similar in a way where we always thought that there's more to life than what
Yeah.
society is giving us.
Yeah. It was funny. I took about a year ago, I took a personality test, right? One of these assessments that you give to prospective employees. And they said, okay, you're way on the end of the spectrum over here, and you're way over here, and you're way over here on this and this. And he said, basically, you're unemployable.
That's
And I,
nice.
I was, yeah, he's like, you're basically unemployable. And I was like, and he's like, and that makes perfect sense because, that's why you went out on your own and did your own thing.
Mhm.
And I was like, honestly, I am like, while I'm highly skilled in a lot of areas, like I was probably not a lot of fun to like manage. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. So anyway, it's,
Well,
I'm,
you're doing great then. So,
well,
yeah.
well, thanks. You should ask my team. They'd probably tell you different, but no. So my point was I was going somewhere with this is, I know what it's like to start a business. I know what it's like to be at the 5 year mark. I know that the problems in year one are different than the problems in year five. What is it like to actually go from starting the business and building infrastructure and having a vision to now having to scale it and doing all these different things? What is that like?
Oof. So originally, again, it started off as volunteering, and I was kind of navigating the whole entrepreneur aspect step by step. I mean, I have helped entrepreneurs before. For example, I've had friends that I helped in terms of building their businesses, but I never actually did it myself, I would say. And it's very different to kind of consult someone compared to actually doing it, because you start doing the work, you're doing the consulting, you're helping people, but then there's the administrative aspect of it as well, things that you are learning on your own. And the more that it becomes, I wouldn't say bigger, but the more that you're getting referred and the company is starting to get traction, for example, that's when you kind of start thinking, oh my gosh, like, should I be increasing services, or should I, hire other people or consultants or other things to kind of delegate the process. And I tried everything. I did everything from, hiring freelancers to help me with some of the clients, for example, which did work, but sometimes it didn't work. So it really depends, because if you're on your own, it was
Yeah.
difficult for me to be able to delegate the work to the consultants, at the same time doing my own work and also navigating how am I going to scale the business. And that's the reason why, for example, at some point I realized, okay, like, I would like to scale, but I can't do this on my own. And so
Yeah.
that's actually when I posted a profile on Y Combinator. It's an accelerator. I'm not sure if you know it, but Y
Yeah.
Combinator. They have this. It's like Tinder for co-founders, I would say. So I put
Sounds
my
interesting.
yeah, yeah. It's really nice actually. So you can meet your next
Yeah.
co-founder there. And actually, Louis reached out to me when he saw my profile, and he's like, "Oh, this is very interesting." So we had a conversation, kind of worked together for like 3 months to see if it could work together between us. And honestly, it's been a life changer, to be honest. So
Wow.
be a solo entrepreneur is very difficult. Obviously, you need a hard hat for that. And you need to be able to know what you're doing. Obviously, I'm in France, so it's harder. It was harder for me to kind of navigate the entrepreneurial aspect as well. So in the global mobility, especially in this industry, I think it's really important to have a partner, I would say. Not everyone knows everything, you know? So Louis
Why
has,
is that important to have a partner?
I think in terms of global mobility, I mean, it's not always important to have a partner in your business, but if you want to scale on a global aspect, for example, like obviously my background is marketing communications, international business and law, okay? So where I'm missing aspects of it if I want to get to a certain level in the company. And this is where like Louis comes in, because what he has, I lack, and what he,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah,
think,
you complement each other. So
yeah,
which one of you is the visionary and which one of you is the get stuff done
I would say
person?
Louis is definitely like more grounded than I am.
Yeah.
he but he's right, like I have, like, I can be a dreamer, that's for sure, but again, I was in the creative field before, so that's just who I am.
Sure.
And yeah.
No, and it's super common that, usually the entrepreneur founder is the visionary, and then they bring someone in who's an integrator that puts the pieces together and makes it all work, and that's super typical. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and in a lot of entrepreneur coaching groups and stuff, and that's a really common phenomena for sure. Let me ask you, going back to kind of relocation, what's the advice you might give somebody who's maybe moving, relocating overseas for the first time?
I mean, there's so many aspects of relocation. I mean, everyone thinks about the administrative aspects, but people also forget about the psychological aspects of moving as well abroad. um, the first thing you need to think about is this really something that you want to do? I mean, definitely you can go to a new country for a few months and kind of check it out, but obviously some people can't handle it, you know. These
Yeah.
also, I mean, for me, when I moved abroad, I was quite young. I was in my early 20s. So I was, I was really excited. I wanted to meet the culture and whatnot. It didn't really cross my mind. But now that I'm in my 30s, I would think about this more. Like, oh, like I, I don't have any kids or anything like that. I'm not married, but these are things that you need to consider as well. Like, you have a family, you have kids. Like, how are you going to navigate your life in a new country without speaking the language, for example? And the fact that you don't speak the language, how are you going to navigate the administrative aspects, which is really important. So, I mean, those are things that you really need to think about before jumping the gun, I would say.
Yeah. Do you think it's easier at, say, 24 or 34 to relocate to, let's say, France from the US?
Um, at, I mean, yeah, at 23, 24, I mean, I was a very spontaneous person.
Yeah.
But it's quite easy to go abroad at this age just because you're still young. There's so much, you can discover. At 34, I think it's maybe a bit harder just because you have such a routine in your life back home.
Mm.
And also at 34, you start seeing your parents kind of get older too. So that's also something I'm dealing with on my own. I mean, I've been abroad for such a long time. Relocating also has a psychological aspect as well that you have to consider. Being abroad, seeing your family and your friends kind of, grow older, going through, having children without you around, birthdays, special events. These are things that you need to consider when moving abroad and creating a new life. Is you're literally leaving something behind. So that's what I usually tell clients as well, is like, just make sure that you're ready, um, in terms of paperwork, obviously, but also mentally.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, interesting. Yeah, you talk about the cultural difference and being abroad. Are there aspects of French culture that still surprise you?
Oh man. I mean, France is always a surprise to me, of course. Everywhere I go, I did a road trip throughout France. I've never seen a country with so much diverse landscape in my life, actually.
Really? How so?
I mean, I love France because if you think about it, France is really centralized in Europe. I mean, you have obviously, well, UK is not part of Europe anymore, but you have the north, you have like, then you go south, you have Spain and
Right.
Portugal, then you have Greece, and then there's, Germany and everything like that. And it's so easy to get anywhere from here. And I hate to say it, I know that in the US we're like, oh, you're the center of the world and whatnot, but that's actually not the case. But
Yeah.
I really do feel like it's so easy to live here in France because, for example, if you want to go to Asia, it's only about 6-hour flight away. If you want to go to the US, it's 6-hour flight away, unless you go to California. But still, it's pretty nice, I would say.
Yeah. Well, you got people checking in here talking about the topography and the geography. Erin is in the French Alps, the hard life, she says, joking.
Oh,
And
it's
she pays taxes. Yeah.
I'm sure she's a
Seriously.
skier or a snowboarder.
Yeah. Are you skiing up there, Erin? Let us know what you're doing up there. You're just reading and writing in the mountains. I would love that too. No double tax. All right. Louise says, is it soccer or football? Are you talking about the Paris Musketeers? The Paris Musketeers play American football. So when we say football, we mean it, not like
Oh, it's
y'all's
American
football.
football.
It's like, let me throw the ball. Like,
The heavy
it's the
pads.
football with the hand where you throw the ball. Like it, yeah.
Got it. That's
Yeah.
funny. I used to be a cheerleader when I was in high school.
Okay. For like football games and
I
stuff?
do know part of the rules.
For football games and
Yeah, for the
basketball games?
football games. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. You go to the Paris Musketeers, you never know.
A little rah
It'll be
rah.
fun. The real rah rah. There you go. That's great. Let me ask you this. We got time for a little bit of little games at the end, but I'm going to ask you before we get into that. What is your vision for EasyStart Relocation?
Oh, well, this is something I would have to talk with Louis about as well. But again, I'm the dreamer, right? So, I mean, my vision for EasyStart essentially is to expand more globally, I would say. I mean, we want to be experts in France for sure. I think it's really important to be experts at something. But I also believe in possibly expanding. Um, I believe that EasyStart can help many different types of people all around the world, in Europe, wherever we go. And actually, as we are, global mobility, it's really not that difficult to expand, I would say. There's a lot of experts around the world that we could partner up with. But again, I'm the dreamer, so I need to kind of talk to my business partner about it.
Yeah. I think you're onto something though. There was a book, I don't know if you've heard of this author before, but this book is called Move by Dr. Parag Khanna. Have you heard of this guy, this book and these people?
I've briefly heard about it. Unfortunately, I'm so busy these days, I don't really have time to
Yeah,
read.
nobody has time to read this stuff. We just listen. I'll just give you the brief part, okay? Basically, people are moving now more than ever, right? People have been moving forever and they're going to keep moving forever. And they're moving now more than ever. And they're moving for like 4 different reasons. One's economic, like new job, like we talk about all the time. Climate, is another one, which is actually kind of underrated. There's political strife, like you see in
Right.
Ukraine, or we see, Brexit, or, whatever, right? And there's one more that I can't think about anyway. But point is, people are moving all the time. But in the managed relocation industry, like what I'm in, people say, what are you talking about? Relocation volumes are down. Well, they're doing it on their own. And that's where you guys come in. And I think that's why you're super well positioned. So when you talk about scaling and you talk about going to other countries, I think you guys are at the kind of the tip of the spear when it comes to how to execute your own personal, individually self-directed relocation, because to your point, you still need the compliance stuff, right? You still need the paperwork, the home finding, the obviously the visa and immigration, right? And you need that for pretty much any country you go to. So I think there's going to be a lot of individuals knocking on your door.
Actually, there's something that we had worked on. It's our little baby. If you go to our website, it's called the Knowledge Hub. So we call them independent heroes, I would say, for those who want to
Okay.
relocate but don't necessarily need or have the money to kind of utilize, lawyers or immigration consultants such as ourselves. This knowledge hub is a great like go-to source, which is like a step-by-step guide of everything you need to do to be able to relocate to France. So visas,
Very
we have,
cool.
I think, long stay visitor visa. I think we have the professional liberal visa and also the student one. And then we also have step-by-step guides and templates for those who are applying for the healthcare, for example, or need information about buying property or renting housing in France. So I feel like there's so much information online that people get really confused. So having things like this for people who are moving into France or even anywhere in the world is very helpful,
Yeah, sure. And when your customers move, do they ever move their household goods and personal effects?
I do. I do.
Yeah.
We
What percentage would you say actually move their personal effects?
I mean, I usually try to get clients to not move their,
Mhm.
furniture and belongings because it can get very expensive to transfer their belongings over. But obviously, if it's very important to them, I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
You can't say no to that. But it can be very expensive. It can be very time consuming as well. And also in terms of timeline, especially if you're trying to find housing in France, you would need to kind of figure that out very well and make sure that the planning is on par. So
Yeah.
usually what most clients do is get temporary housing and then uh, move their stuff into their permanent housing.
Yep, definitely. Well, that gentleman I told you about that owns a piece of the Paris Musketeers, he owns a international moving company, so he
Oh,
would be a good
nice.
person to talk to.
Yeah, I would love to connect.
Yeah, I'll do that. Make sure we can somebody tag
Plug
Jose
in the log.
Botley in the yeah. Maybe I'll see you over there this summer and we go
There
to
we
a,
go.
a football game.
We can do a football game.
Yeah, be cool. Super cool. This is awesome. Let's go. I think Samara's tagging him right now. Let's have some fun here. You wanna play a game with me, Ann? I know it's late where you. What time is it, Ann? What time
It
is it
is
right
almost 11 p.m., but I am a night owl, so let's go.
now? Okay, so you're ready to rock. All right, sounds good. Sammy, you want to get into it? Let's have a little game here, okay? All right, we're gonna play a game called Overrated, Underrated. Okay. Do you know how to play, Ann?
I'm going to assume that I have to list things that are overrated and underrated.
Well, I'll do half of it for you. I will list the things and you
Okay.
tell me if it's overrated or underrated, okay? All right. And let's get into it here. The first one up, Sammy. Cultural coaching.
Underrated.
Underrated. All right. Why is that?
I think that some people do need cultural coaching, I would say, when moving into a new, country, just because they assume things and they have these expectations, but then they get really disappointed. So I think it's kind of important not for everyone, but some people to be able to have this coach to kind of guide them in the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, imagine just, walking into a room and just doing what do you guys I mean, you guys coined the term faux pas, right? Faux pas, right? You're messing up off the bat,
Yeah.
I don't know what you're doing over there. Sammy's rolling her eyes at me. She's like, you can't say that kind of stuff. All right, let's get into it. 1 point here for Ann. Next one up. Big cities as the only expat option.
Overrated.
Okay.
Yeah,
What
what
people
do you think so?
people I mean, you know what? Yeah. If you're an expat, like listen, I've never been an expat, so I mean take this with a grain of salt. But I mean, if you're an expat and you're going somewhere and you may not be super fluent in the language, you may not be super fluent in the culture, you may need services to support your kids, or you maybe want an international school or something like that, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Like, like I feel like those services are more available in the big cities, but you're saying no, so tell me what you think.
I think that, well, I'm speaking mostly about France at the moment, but I feel like
Sure.
in France, for example, big cities, obviously you can get everything, but what's nice is that you can also get a lot of things living outside of a big city too. You get nature,
Mhm.
for example.
Mhm.
The landscapes in France are amazing. So there's
Yeah.
lots to do. Again, Erin's in the Alps, for example. So she's
Yeah.
not in a big city.
No.
She's an expat, I guess. So I would say for me, it's kind of overrated. I mean, obviously, if you're younger, I think a big city is amazing, especially for those who are coming over for work-related type of things and either entrepreneurs or, starting their career in a new country. But if you're, an expat coming over with your family, kind of starting a new life, there's a lot of schools in France that offer, English teaching French courses and or also, programs in English. So for me, I think it's kind of overrated and there's so much to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, if I come to visit France this summer and say I go to a Paris Musketeers game on a Saturday, where else should I go visit besides Paris?
There's so many things. Okay, let me ask you a question then. What's your personality type? Like, what do you like to do during the summertime?
I like to eat, drink, and see things in that order.
Okay, well, if you really like food, I would say Lyon is probably the best place to go to.
Okay.
Best city for you because it's the gastronomy city of France.
Okay. Lyon.
And
Okay.
Lyon is really nice too because it's also very relaxing. There's I think it's the biggest park in France or something like that as well. So you can relax in the park.
I'm all
Um,
there.
yeah,
Yeah, just relaxing.
yeah,
This is
exactly.
great. Love it. Love it. Okay, I'm going to Lyon. All right, sounds good. Next one up. Overrated, underrated. Instagram versus reality expat life.
That's a
That's
tricky
tough.
one.
That's phrased kind of in a tough
I
way.
mean, I think that
How
Instagram
about
is
we'll just say
overrated.
Instagram, overrated, underrated?
Well, I would say Instagram is definitely overrated. Reality expat life, underrated,
Yeah.
right? But
What's the difference? Tell me to compare them to.
I mean, what you see on Instagram obviously is very grandiose. How do you say? Like, sometimes I'm losing my English.
Grandiose, probably.
Yes, yes,
That's what we
exactly.
say. It sounds so much better, grandiose. It sounds so much better when you say we say grandiose, which is
It's
like, I
also
mean, even when you say it, it sounds wrong, like grandiose. Yeah.
yeah. I just feel like I don't know. Instagram, you want to perceive yourself in a certain way to the public, so I find that a bit, I would say, like overrated, whereas
Hmm.
actual reality expat life is underrated. I mean,
Hmm.
you're meeting locals. Locals are very different from what you see on Instagram, for example. Um, yeah, I mean, expat life is very different, and also like people are like, oh, like I'm living next to the Eiffel Tower, for example, and in reality, it's a really tiny place, like 12 meter square apartment for like 1,200 euros. So reality versus Instagram, not so much.
Right. Yeah, it's a great point. Well, and, I think everybody says that too. It's just what's portrayed on, and yet all we do, we just consume it. We consume so much of it
You consume it. But also
that
it's
we
a good
know.
tool if you're an entrepreneur too, for sure.
Oh yeah, why is that?
Well, it's a great tool because if you're building your company, you want to show the world what you're doing. It's also, I mean, obviously I worked in marketing communications, so I can't say that Instagram is the worst. Social media is terrible, but I mean, in terms of a business standpoint, I find it like important to be able to showcase what you can do as a company to build trust. But yeah,
But
I
let's
think
face it too, those Instagram reels about living as an expat in Paris and being right next to the Eiffel Tower and all these things. I mean, that's what drives demand for your services too, right? I mean, all these people want to live this grandiose lifestyle over there in Paris, right? It's like, and so they're come knock on your door, like, hey, how can you make this happen for me?
I mean, we're guilty of it too at EasyStart.
Yeah.
We use social media to be able to help people come
Yeah.
to France. It's kind of like a bait in a way, but in
Yeah.
the end, the reality of expat life is not what you see on Instagram, but what you
Yeah.
experience in real life.
Cool. Cool. All right. Next one. Overrated, underrated. Knowing
No.
when to ask for help.
Well, I think that's very underrated. I would say
Okay.
it's very underrated. I think people should ask for more help for sure. I think people these in this day,
What is it that holds people back? Why don't they ask for help, you think?
I think it's just I mean, I was guilty of this too, but I have a feeling that pride kind of gets in the way. You feel like you can do everything yourself, but it's really important to be able to ask for help, you know. No one knows everything in life, so ask for help.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's funny how it's such a life hack, honestly. Just asking people for advice or asking people, what they did. People are so willing to give advice and to share their experiences with others, and you can learn so much.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Also, you might meet a new friend, you know, something
that's
in
true.
common.
That's
It's
true. That's true.
very underrated for me. Yeah. And you think it's underrated or overrated?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think asking for help. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to phrase this, but finding someone who's done what you want to do and asking them how they did it
Mhm.
is massively underrated. I mean, I'm not a big fan of shortcuts in life. I don't think many things worth having are available via shortcut. But this is one of those things where finding somebody who did it, asking what they did, writing it down, doing it, running into an issue, going back to them, saying, "Hey, I ran into this issue. You ever had this? Oh, you did? Okay, great. Go do this." Like, the people will literally give you the blueprint from everything from working out to investing in real estate to being an entrepreneur to getting ahead in your career to, like, there's literally nothing you can't find out by just asking somebody who's done it. And yet you're right. We all want to be these self-made people or something who just came up with the answer the hard way.
Actually, I'm going to tell you something. I don't know if you know this company called Score. It's actually an organization.
Yes,
Or,
small business in the United States. Is that it?
uh,
Or
yes,
no?
it's in the United States. Yes, but they
Yeah.
are free mentors for entrepreneurs
Hmm.
building their companies. So actually, I utilized one, and he helped me out with my company in the very beginning. So asking
Yeah.
for help is important.
I love it. Yeah. And the truth is it's not the ideas that are hard, it's the execution that is hard, right? And so even your competitors will tell you things. So yeah, beautiful. Sammy, we got any left? All right, one left. Last one. Overrated, underrated. Paris, France.
Overrated. I
Overrated. Oh man, what a twist at the end. The whole time it's softballs and
I'm kidding. I mean,
cliches,
okay.
and then boom, Paris, France. Overrated. That's it. That's it, y'all. Look, Louis just jumped right before the end of the show and the end of the company. He says, "I have to jump. Merci, Ben, for the
Oh, he
invitation."
missed out. He would be like,
And
"What are you doing?"
he's like, "What are you doing?" Yep. Yep.
No, I'm saying, I mean, Paris obviously is an amazing place to be. I came here for a reason. Obviously, I stayed here for a reason. And I think a lot of people who come to France have very good reasons too, and to
Yep.
Paris. But again, France is not just Paris. France is also a country that offers so much in terms of other cities, other people to meet. The landscape's amazing. It's incredible. I mean, honestly. So I say that Paris is overrated only because I think that there's so much more that you can do in France.
If I come to France, should I take the train or should I rent a car?
Oh, the public transportation is amazing here. Take the train.
Take the train, like even if I want to see the country.
It depends on what you want to do.
I
I
want to
mean,
go to Lyon. I want to go to Lyon to relax and eat. Bien
okay,
bon vivant.
take the train. It's
Okay.
only like three to 4 hours to get there by train, and it's better for the climate.
Oh, okay. There we go. All right. Awesome.
Yeah.
This has been a lot of fun.
Yes.
Um, and you've been wonderful. Thanks for
Yes.
staying up so late. It's almost 11 o'clock where you are. Thanks everybody for joining in and being in the comments. Hit that like button, show Ann some love, and
Thank
support
you so
Easy
much,
Start.
guys.
And
It
I'm
was
going to ask you before we sign off, you want to leave us with a final thought?
a final thought. At 11 p.m., the only thought I have is going to bed. But I would say for all the entrepreneurs and those who are, moving abroad or thinking about moving abroad, not even just an entrepreneur, but I would say just make sure that it's the right move for you. And I hope that whatever plays out, I'm sure a lot of good things will happen.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Ann. Ann Dela Victoria from EasyStart Relocation. Thanks. It's been wonderful having you on.
Thank you so much, Ben.